Hello, my name is Captain Chris Burrows and I am Scarborough Borough Council's Borough Harbour Master with responsibility for the harbours at Whitby and Scarborough and also finally Cobble Landing. Today I'm going to give you a brief insight into a day in the life of our team at Whitby Harbour, and I'm going to discuss briefly who I am firstly, what Whitby Harbour actually is because it's generally far more than what people see on first sight, what our team does and what we're responsible for. And then I'm going to give you a look ahead at some of the exciting things that are coming to our harbour at Whitby in the next few years. So who am I then? Well, as I said, my name's Chris Burrows. I'm firstly a husband and a father to a family of six children. I went to sea when I was 16 years old, and I went with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. So I went to college at South Tyneside Nautical College, and then I did my sea time and served my time as a cadet with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. Once I qualified with the Royal Fleet Auxiliary, and I did a few years service with them. I then went off to the North Sea and worked on oil and gas supply vessels before moving on to working on the same types of vessels internationally, both in the Far East and off the west coast of Africa. I worked my way up, gained my Master Mariner's qualification, and served as a captain on board those vessels. In 2016, I came ashore and I picked up the job as the Deputy Harbour Master for Scarborough Borough Council, and recently I've been promoted to Borough Harbour Master. Along with my working life, I'm also an RNLI volunteer. I'm the Community Safety Officer for Filey Lifeboat Station, and I'm a Careers at Sea Ambassador as well. So I work with generally young people to open their eyes to the opportunities and careers that exist in the maritime sector and at sea generally. So, what is Whitby Harbour? Now, to most people, this will appear to be a very strange question, because what most people see is that Whitby Harbour is the beautiful scenery and the boats that they see whenever they visit Whitby. But in actual fact, Whitby Harbour is far more. And the definition of Whitby Harbour comes from the Whitby Port and Harbour Act of 1879. And that act says that the Port of Whitby shall, for all purposes of this and the recited act, or any act relating to the harbour of Whitby, extend over and along the seashore for a distance of 1 mile and a half westward, 1 mile eastward from the existing lighthouse on the northern extremity of the west pier of the harbour, and to a distance of 2 miles seaward from and coextensive with that portion of the seashore, and shall include all places where the sea flows and reflows within those limits, and all the lands, buildings, works within or near to those limits from time to time vested in or belonging to or under the control of the trustees. Now, since the Act was originally written, a lot has changed, but those limits remain exactly the same. The main thing that's changed in there is the reference to trustees, and in modern language that relates to Scarborough Borough Council as the Harbour Authority. Now, notice the date on the Act there, 1879, and a lot of the legislation that we work under within harbours is all very ancient legislation. It is written in not easy to read language, certainly not modern language, and a lot of it has not been redrafted since it was originally done. And the Whitby Port and Harbour Act is a good example of that, been over 200 years old. Now, that area described in the Act is a huge area and far more than what most people would consider. So that gives us a total area of over 1,100 acres or 1.8 square miles of area to under our responsibility. Now, 1,130 of that is wet area, is water, and another 18.4 acres of that is dry land. Now, of those 1,100 acres that are wet, just over 1,000 of them are actually at sea. Now, what that means is that our limits extend from 2 miles beyond the north of the Whitby piers, right the way to 4 kilometres inland, right the way up to Russup Weir. Now, we know that these limits have never changed because the weir at Russup was built for the old mill, and that mill was built, and along with the weir, before the Harbours Act came into force. So we know that throughout certainly that period since the Act came into force, that our limits have remained exactly the same. And of course, that gives us a huge area of responsibility, both from what we can see within the town of Whitby, right the way inland, and then right the way 2 miles out to sea as well. Within those areas, we have 830 metres of wharves and quays to look after, plus hundreds of metres of pontoon. And that, for a small team, that gives us an awful lot of land and water to look after in what is essentially a very busy harbour. But of course, it's not all about infrastructure, and people are arguably our strongest asset within harbours. So our team is made up of 3 Harbour Masters, 2 office staff, 5 local port services watchkeepers who work around the clock, 1 marina attendant and an additional marina attendant during the summer season, 1 harbour joiner who acts as team leader, 2 harbour operatives, 3 bridge operatives who operate Whitby Swing Bridge, and then the rest of our community, which is made up of over 400 vessel owners, 13,000 local residents approximately, and then the 1.4 million visitors to the region who all make use of Whitby Harbour and its beautiful scenery. So what do these people actually do? Well, I'll start at the top of the list. So 3 Harbour Masters. So there are myself and 2 deputies, and our responsibility is to oversee and manage the day-to-day running of each of our ports. So what we do is we divide ourselves between the areas under our control, so mainly Whitby and Scarborough, and then visiting finally when needed. And we will divide ourselves up during the week so that at Harbour Master during normal times is on duty at each port on a daily basis. Now, this has continued throughout the pandemic. What we have done is we've reduced so that we are down in accordance with government guidance. We are working from home as much as possible, but there is always a Harbour Master on duty within the borough. So there's either somebody at the Whitby office or somebody at the Scarborough office. And today I'm at the Scarborough office, keeping an eye on things here. But even whilst we're working from home during these times, we're on call and we're available to come out immediately if our team on the ground require it. So supporting us in the office at Whitby are two office ladies, and they take care of all the daily administration and they keep us in check. On the ground during the normal course of activities and on a 24-hour basis are our local port services watchkeepers. Now, these are what we used to refer to as port control watchkeepers. They've also been referred to as piermen and various other things over the years. Now, recently we changed their title to local port services, and this is to reflect a change in legislation that's coming in the next few years, and it differentiates the service that we offer to what a large port such as Teesport might offer, and they would refer to their service as a vessel traffic service as opposed to a local port service. The difference here is that a vessel traffic service will actually direct vessels to go to a particular place or to alter their course. With a local port service, we won't physically direct vessels, but what we will do is we will offer them advice. So if a vessel is running into danger, heading towards a hazard, we will advise the master of that vessel that he may well want to alter his course because there is a hazard in front of him. If he's going into shallow water, again, we will offer the advice that he may well want to change his direction of travel to avoid whatever that hazard is. But the liability is left with the master of that vessel to actually make the decision as to which course of action he wants to take. So that's the difference between the service we offer and what a large port would offer with a VTS. Now, offering a local port service for the size of our port is rather unusual around the coast, and we stand out as a centre of excellence within our harbours for actually offering this service. A lot of other ports of our size would operate a daylight service only, so once you get to 5 o'clock in the evening, there is no advice available to people until the following morning. So we were highlighted as an area of best practice by the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency a few years ago, and that best practice was shared with our neighbouring ports throughout the coast of the UK. So the next on the list is our marina attendants. Now, our marina attendants are the first face that somebody sees when they visit Whitby on their vessel. So they will greet the vessel, they will take their lines, make sure they're tied up securely and safely, and then they will point out the facilities that are available to them, how they can get to the local town where they'll find a local shop. We'll get them set up with water and electricity and any other services that they require. So they are essentially the face of Whitby for people arriving from the sea from a leisure point of view. Our harbour joiner is absolutely instrumental to maintaining the maintenance of our harbours. So within our harbours, we have an awful lot of infrastructure, as I said before, with those many 100 metres of pontoons and wharfs and quays. And we will try and do as much maintenance as we can in-house with our own team before we bring contractors in. And our harbour joiner is responsible for coordinating that maintenance and any repairs required. So you can often see him working on large timber piles, laying cement down to make repairs to areas, dangling on a safety harness off the edge of a wharf to get to something to repair, and generally coordinating the teams that are available to him to keep our harbours maintained. Now, working on a day-to-day basis with the harbour joiner are two harbour operatives, and these guys work with the joiner to actually conduct the maintenance. And the local port services watchkeepers as well will assist with the maintenance so that we can keep on top of things. Now, anybody who's visited Whitby will have come across Whitby Swing Bridge, and therefore will have come across our three harbour operatives. Our three bridge operatives. So our bridge operatives operate at Whitby Swing Bridge, and the bridge operates from 2 hours before high water to 2 hours after high water on the hour and half past the hour, whenever there is demand for the bridge. So we are well aware that every time we open the bridge, we bring Whitby to a standstill, particularly during the busy summer months. So we will not open the bridge unless it is required for a vessel to transit. Now, it's worth pointing out that river traffic has precedence over road traffic, and the reason for that is very simple, that the river has been there a lot longer than what the road has. And of course, the bridge completely isolates the upper harbour, so it is essential that we do open it to let traffic flow freely, both from the upper to the lower harbour and vice versa. So our operatives will clear the bridge, they will close the gates and ring the bells, and then they will operate the bridge as quickly as possible. If we only have small traffic coming through, we will only open one side of the bridge because that then saves us time to get it closed again. Obviously, with bigger vessels, we need both sides open so that they can safely transit. That's our team within harbours. So a fairly small team looking after a vast area. But of course, as I said before, part of the team are our users as well. So the 400 vessel owners that I mentioned are split between about 40 local fishing vessels, just under, and then the rest are made up of leisure vessels. Each of these types of owners have their own requirements, their own demands, and their own services that they need to make their visit work well. So we tend, as much as possible, to give these people and these vessels the services that they require. So commercial vessels are generally confined to particular areas of the harbour, and the leisure vessels are contained to others. Sometimes they will mix, but they do tend to stick to their own areas because that's the way the services work best. And of course, our next main user are the local residents of Whitby. You can't go anywhere in Whitby without seeing the harbour. The people regularly need to cross from one side of the town to the other, and that involves going right through the middle of the harbour. So local residents are absolutely essential to what we offer. Now, as I keep saying, we have an exceptionally large area to cover with a very small team. And that's why it's important that local residents, when they see something wrong in the harbour, please let us know. Our staff can't be everywhere at once, and we do rely on people pointing things out to us that we maybe haven't seen or maybe picked up on. So those reports are really important to us, and it allows us to attend to things as rapidly as possible. And then finally, we've got the 1.4 million visitors to the borough, a lot of whom will visit Whitby during their time here. And we want them to come, we want them to enjoy the town, enjoy the harbour in a safe manner that protects them, makes sure they have a good time, and ultimately looks after the local economy and the local community. So what does our team actually do? Well, I've been through the list of different roles that we have within Whitby Harbour, and it can be broken down into a few broad areas that we look after. So vessel traffic management. This falls to the local port services watchkeepers, and they will direct vessels entering the harbour to the particular area or berth that they need to head to. They will greet them, they will offer them and assist with the services that were required to get going. They will also collect information from those vessels, firstly from a charging point of view, so they can be charged correctly, and secondly from a security point of view, so that we can feed information into the police and into the border agencies, so that we maintain those links and make sure that our ports are secure. Now, this is quite unusual around UK ports, that we will assist a UK border force, and we will pass those details on and offer them whatever assistance we can. So, it's not a legislative requirement. So some ports and harbours around the UK, in particular some marinas, will not work with the border agencies that are not so willing to share that information. But we believe that protects the local community and protects the harbours. So we're quite happy, and we will regularly work with third-party agencies to increase security around the area. So that leads me nicely into the second area, which is security itself. So we fall under the International Port and Facility Security Regulations, and that puts an onus on us to protect our ports, our wharves, our pontoons, and such like. And it also means that when we get visiting cruise vessels, which hopefully we'll have one later in this year, we have the powers, and we will close down areas of the port to ensure that we have a secure area for those passengers to come and go from the cruise vessel. So what that means is that we will secure the area, we'll ensure the entrance to that area is guarded, we will conduct people searches, baggage searches, and we will count visitors in and out of that area. Anybody who is not on a list of passengers or crew for that vessel will not be allowed to enter that area. And that is all managed and overwatched by the Department for Transport, and they will inspect our security arrangements to check that we are providing that security barrier between the land and the vessel itself. The last thing we want is to be responsible for somebody or something of a dangerous nature going through the port and then impacting on a vessel that's visiting our town. So the third area to cover then is emergency response. Now, emergencies do happen on a fairly regular basis within Whitby Harbour. Thankfully, most of them are of a very minor scale, but our team on the ground will initially respond to any emergency which occurs, and we will look after that incident and respond to it until the emergency services arrive, at which case we will pass the emergency over to the emergency services, and we will act to support them and do what we can to assist and act as the subject matter experts. There is one exception to that, and that's oil pollution. Now, with oil pollution, the coin is flipped, and we continue to be responsible for and continue to direct the response to an oil pollution incident. The emergency services will still be called, they will still assist us, but ultimately the responsibility for oil pollution lies with us. And as such, our staff are trained both in incident response and as on-scene commanders to deal with that sort of incident. Now, one of the big areas that we deal with is conservancy. And this, anybody who's visited the town will probably have seen our big yellow dredger, the Sands End. And what she does is she dredges spoil from the navigation channel from the berths, and then she takes it out to sea to a disposal site where it's dropped onto the seabed. Now, of course, dredging the harbour is a constant battle. Mother Nature constantly wants to bring the sand and the silt back into the harbour, and also wants to bring it downriver from further inland. So we're fighting the battle on two fronts. So it is important that we maintain our dredging activities, and we do that throughout the year as the weather allows, to make sure that we maintain the berths at a minimal safe level. Now, we have a duty to maintain the vessel so that it's reasonably fit for use. Now, that doesn't mean that we have a duty to dredge the harbour to allow super tankers to enter. What we have to do is to maintain it at a reasonable level for the vessels that currently use it. Now, if you've seen any old pictures of Whitby Harbour, you'll have noticed that a lot of the harbour bed is dry, and you'll see pictures of fishing vessels which are sat on the mud at low water. Now, that's because dredging within Whitby Harbour is a fairly modern occurrence. And when I say fairly modern, I'm talking about in the last sort of 50 years. Before that, it would have just been left to the elements, and seafarers would, just as they do today, would have worked the tide so that they came and went when there was enough water for them. Now, having our own dredging and our own dredger system for a harbour of our size is quite unusual. Most harbours in the UK don't own their own dredger, and the impact of that is that they will probably bring somebody in probably every 3 or 4 years to do their dredging for them. Now, that means that if their channels silt up within that time, they will just have to wait until the next cycle. So we're actually quite lucky in that if we do have a sudden surge, a sudden siltation event, we can target that and we can deal with that quite quickly. So we're blessed to have the dredger. Now, as I mentioned before, one of our bigger areas that the staff deal with is maintenance. And as I said, that's led by the harbour joiner, and we do as much of the maintenance as we can in-house. But then if there's something we can't do or we need some assistance, we'll bring in outside contractors. And of course, the key area for us is safety. Everything we do is risk assessed, and we're looking at both the safety of our staff, the safety of our users, and then the safety of the community as a whole. Because the last thing we want is incidents happening on our patch. And that again comes back to people letting us know when they see something that they don't think is quite right, so that we can investigate and rectify if it's needed. So everybody who visits our areas is a part of the harbour team in one way or another. So let's take a quick look to the future, and I'll give you an idea of some of the exciting things that I find exciting that are coming to the port in the next few years. So the first one is the arrival of offshore wind into Whitby. Now, offshore wind has long been spoke about in Whitby, and the reason for that is that a local company wants to build an offshore maintenance operations base on Endeavour Wharf in the centre of Whitby, and that would be designed to run stores and crew from the town to wind farms off the coast, and that is mainly to do with the Doggerbank wind farm. Now, this has been floating around for some time, at least the last 5 years, and the reason it's been delayed is because central government has delayed the project at Doggerbank, waiting to give final approval. And of course, there's no point building an operations and maintenance base for a wind farm that doesn't exist yet and is not going to exist in the next few years. Now, I'm pleased to say that this is now back on the cards, because earlier during last year, government did give the approvals required to start work on the Doggerbank wind farm, and further down the coast in East Yorkshire, the main connections that will bring the electricity from the wind farm to shore have now been made, and work is well underway. So that brings the prospect of an offshore maintenance base within Whitby back onto the cards, and that would be very exciting for the town, bringing jobs and new innovation. Now, the second one that I'm personally very excited about is connected to the current Town Deals Fund bid. And one of the projects that has been submitted to central government there is to build a maritime hub on Endeavour Wharf, which would ultimately incorporate the offshore maintenance base that I just mentioned. But primarily, the maritime hub would make Whitby a centre of maritime excellence, and it would offer first-class modern training facilities to both bring people to the town to train for the maritime industries, but also to offer local people, and in particular local young people, the opportunity to access the maritime industry and to be trained up for what is a massively growing industry in the blue sector. Now, it's not just aimed at people who are not already in the sector or don't have anything to do with it. The hub would also cover things for local firms where they have training needs. So again, it can be done locally rather than those people needing to go to surrounding areas to pick up that training and to renew any training required. So this will hopefully open new doors in particular for the youth of Whitby. And as I say, the government is very invested in expanding the maritime industry, and they've written a very thick paper called the Maritime 2050 document, and this lays out a strategy to bring us to the world's foremost maritime nation within the next sort of 20 years. So this should offer great opportunities for the town, bringing in new jobs, bringing in new training opportunities, and we are very hopeful that the town deal funding will allow us to bring this vision to reality. The third project that's exciting, that's picking up at the moment, is the prospect of a lobster hatchery on the fish quay at Whitby. Now, this is an opportunity for us as a town to give back to the marine environment, because of course, as a town, we've long relied on our fishing community, and our fishing community is very important to us, both going forward and maintaining the heritage and the history from that. It will also act as a catalyst for the regeneration of the fish market, making it look less tired than it does now, and it will give us the opportunity to support the fishing community going forward. Now, this is a project that's one to watch. It's one that is a private venture they are currently crowdfunding, and they hope to move this forward, both to be able to grow lobsters, baby lobsters, and then return them to the sea, and then to offer a facility for people to come and look around and to get a view firsthand of what goes on in our local marine environments. So very exciting developments coming in the next few years. So the vision of Whitby Harbour, and my vision as the new Borough Harbour Master, is to make sure that Whitby is a modern port, but a modern port which cherishes its community and its heritage, and leads us and sets us up for a prosperous future, both for us as a harbour and then for the community in general. Now, I hope this has been useful. I hope I haven't bored you for too long, and I really thank you for your attention. If people do have questions, we're always happy to answer them. We like people to be interested in what we do, and we appreciate that a lot of people see us, they see what goes on, but they don't really understand what's going on behind the scenes. So if you do have questions, let us know, and we're more than happy to help. Thanks for your time, and have a good day.